Welcome to Conversations with Jen and Mel. This show is about real life with real people, having real conversations, from better health to mental health and more. Let's check out the conversation right now with your host, Jen and Mel.
Welcome. Wait a minute. Welcome to Happy MLK Day and Happy Inauguration Day. And there we go. Whoop, there it is. Yeah, I don't know what that's about, but what in the world? America at its finest. Pray for America. Pray for the world. Pray for America. Pray for the world. So, okay, today we are talking about, on Conversations with Jen and Mel, we are talking about navigating the big D word. The big D word, the big cuss word, that big word that we all try to avoid. Divorce. Navigating divorce. Yeah. So what does that look like? How do we handle going through a divorce, especially at a certain time in your life? Like, because...
Is there ever a good time for divorce?
Well, maybe. There's a better time for a divorce.
A better time than other. Okay.
There's a better time, than other times.
Okay.
I think because the longer you spend in a relationship, especially as you get older, you start considering, the future, the fear of the unknown. Not just life without them, but life without anyone. And so we start considering the factor on aging, like, is somebody going to want me? Am I too old? Because, people give you that scenario, or tell you that scenario, don't nobody want nothing old but money. And so we fear change. We fear the unknown. And so navigating divorce, because especially after you establish history with someone, there's so many layers to that. Like, okay, well, I'm moving on. They haven't.
Or they moving on and you haven't.
They're moving on, and I haven't. And we have things that we've acquired together. Sometimes people have children together. They have property together. They have all these different things that they've acquired over a certain amount of time. And so not only is it that I'm losing my role as a husband or my role as a wife, now all these things that meant something in my life, now I'm losing. And so now our assets are being divided up, and some even sold. And so I was attached to my house. I've lived in my house 25 years.
Yeah.
And so now this is brought to the table. I'm used to parenting full time, or now grandparenting full time, and now my role is divided up. And so we have to understand that sometimes when you see people going through a divorce and it's so difficult, it's because there's so many layers to the loss.
Yes.
And sometimes you may have never even liked the person that you're divorcing. I mean, really never even liked them. But at the end of the day, there were some things that came with them that were staples in your life, even if it was just simply their income. Even if it was somebody simple to help in the decision making. And so sometimes navigating divorce can be, and this is a conversation my husband and I had recently, because 4 years ago this month, I left my ex-husband, and I was talking to my current husband now, who is an amazing man, and he is my friend. And we were talking, and it was the wee hours of the morning, and he too was married before in his younger years. And I told him, I said, I think that my problem is with my ex-husband is that I want him to accept the fact that it just didn't work.
Why?
because someone that you've known for over a decade, having to go in and keep them blocked, or not ever being able to communicate with them, or have healthy communication with them. Because as an adult, I'm watching him with his ex-wife, and they've had kids and grandkids, and it's been so long that their relationship and their communication is healthy. And now I see this other thing over here, and I'm like, ugh. How do we transition this, and does it need to transition? And can it just be an L and I continue to delete you and you be the only person in my phone still blocked?
Yes.
Absolutely. But
Absolutely.
that's how it's been for the last 4 years. Unblocked for a month and then there's a problem. So I think that navigating divorce can be so difficult because you lose so many relationships and so many things. And I was talking to someone last night, and they were saying that they were so depressed. And this person has just gone through a divorce.
Oh.
And so sometimes we don't understand the impact of it. But one of the stages of grief is depression. And so grief and loss, one of the symptoms is that.
Right.
And so there's so many losses in divorce. How do we deal with them? Because before we deal with them, we spend so much time in denial. And not just divorce now, and breakup in general.
Breakup in general.
Yes. We spend so much time in all these stages. So, okay, in case you all don't know, that of course we understand anytime there's a relationship or, there's loss, right? Or anytime there's a relationship that breaks up, or when people go their separate ways, there's loss. And so we have not just actual losses like death. We have symbolic losses. And so when we talk about the loss of a role, so, as a woman and as a man, sometimes we've spent all this time trying to walk into that role.
Right.
And so more than that person even meant something to us, sometimes that role was esteemed far above that individual.
Yes.
And so, and I think that might even be true for women who actually marry men they don't even have access to.
Wow.
Like, I just always wanted to be a wife, and the validation of being a wife. It doesn't matter that I can't even have intimacy with my man. But because that role is esteemed so high,
Right.
there's something about that longing and that desire for that role. So occupying that role and being in that place that you thought was going to validate you and it doesn't, that's one thing. But then to have that thing and to obtain that thing that you so long for, and then it be snatched away.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm grieving the loss of a role versus the loss of a man sometimes.
Yeah, because it became your identity.
Exactly. Well said. Yeah. I was finally able to identify myself with that. Yeah.
Yeah, so who am I now?
Yeah. So yeah. So what's your take on
navigating divorce?
Navigating divorce. Because I know you haven't gone through a divorce.
I have not personally gone through a divorce, but I know many people, family members, friends, who have gone through a divorce. There definitely is that grief process. You go through the stages of denial, anger, wanting reconciliation sometimes.
Bargaining, yep. The bargaining. Yep.
But I think for most of them, there is joy on the other side. that has
joy.
The experience. Joy was on the other side of that.
Joy.
Yeah. I'm not a proponent for divorce though. But
Absolutely
I'm just
not.
saying.
Absolutely not. I am pro-marriage, 110.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's interesting to watch how some people bounce back and some people never do.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to recall if I know anyone who did not bounce back.
Yeah. Some people that never do.
For some people, it was slow,
Yeah.
but
Eventually,
eventually
they got to
were
that
able to
place.
get their footing, and recover. And maybe it's a sign of the times, because previously, especially as a woman, if you were divorced and you didn't have no money, you didn't have nowhere to go, like it was like very traumatic from a financial standpoint if you got a divorce. But nowadays, women are working and self-sufficient. So I think that might be the difference in the bounce back.
Makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
It makes all the difference in the world when you're saying, okay, wait a minute, I can afford to bounce back.
Right.
I can afford to bounce back. But it's so crazy, because in times past and even in the church, I remember getting divorced, and I remember how little support I got from the church. I remember them Negroes throwing the book at me. I mean, literally. No, I'm so serious. I mean, the pastor's wife wanted to know if I was the prodigal girl crying wolf up until now. Asked me, did I just want a pity party? The pastor fussed at me for about 40 minutes straight. I mean, so I literally just had to hang up. It was a time where they literally turned their backs on me in a time where I actually needed them the most.
Right.
And they chose his side, but because I was the one that left. And so navigating divorce is hard because of sometimes it causes a great divide.
Mm-hmm.
And people are choosing sides now. And so it's as if your friends, your relationships, and people in your life that you all have had conjointly
Right.
have to decide whether or not they're going to be on his side or my side.
So I'm not that person. I'm not choosing sides.
Yeah. Yeah, me either. I'm on the side of right is right, wrong is wrong, or whatever y'all do.
Yes.
I'm here for some sessions. If y'all want to make it work and y'all want to talk about it, let's do that. But at the end of the day, right is still right.
Yes.
Wrong is still wrong.
Wrong is wrong. But I'm not choosing sides.
Yep. No.
So if you brought this person into my life, because I have had very close friends who have divorced, that's still my brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. People don't like that at all.
They do not.
They do not. Like, people will fall out with you. Like, oh, you still friends with them after they did A, B, C, D, E, F, and G to me? Well, that was to you. But wait a minute. The worst part is when you say, okay, well, they did A, B, C, D, E, F, and G to you, but I know what you did too.
That's funny. Yes. That sometimes that is the case.
That is.
But just the way my love is set up, if you bring this person into my life,
then you don't get to snatch them away.
And you don't get to, because y'all,
yeah,
that's between y'all. What they got to do with me?
Listen. So, navigating divorce. So before I was in therapy, before I started being a therapist, I used to work in the legal field. And I have watched people spend more money fighting in divorce court than they ended up giving their spouse.
That's funny.
Yeah. Because you don't understand that it's not just the court process. So these attorneys have fees. They are of counsel, but they are of counsel. So every moment of their time that you need to speak to them directly to do counseling sessions, to vent,
pay for it.
you're going to pay for it.
I just think it's interesting when it gets petty.
Oh, it gets real petty.
Y'all fighting over the dog. Even though I know the dog people, that's part of your family. I don't get it, but I get it. I hear you, but I don't get it. But it gets petty.
It does. I think the hardest part about navigating divorce is, not just coming to a place of acceptance, but an accepting that it's actually happening, but getting to a place where we come to a point of accepting our responsibility in it.
Oh, yeah.
And so people do a whole lot of pointing fingers. And the blame is all their fault. It's all. And so what I realize about people innately is we have a hard time accepting our responsibility in something, and maybe in that role, you did everything right. Maybe the issue started with your choice from the beginning.
Yep. Ding, ding, ding.
And so maybe you're right. Oh, I was a faithful wife and I was loving and, I cooked and I cleaned and I gave it to him every time he wanted it. But, he didn't have a faithful heart from the beginning.
Right. Or when you saw it the first time, you didn't believe it or you made excuses for it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You ignored it.
Yep.
Looked the other way.
Yep. First, second, and third time.
And then that ended up being the 10th and 11th time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So navigating divorce. I think the idea of doing something different. We get so stuck, and later we'll talk about being unstuck, but we get so stuck in the monotony, in the routine, in the dysfunction. And so I think on one of the episodes we talked about red flags. And one of the things that came out was we talked about red flags. I say anything that you don't want to see replicated in your children, that is absolutely of a surety a red flag. Right?
Right.
And so I think that when it comes to divorce and talk about getting in relationships, like we saw the behaviors, their attributes, and who they were from the beginning. And so maybe I did everything right in the relationship, but I was strictly in the wrong place. And so do we ever even come to that? Or how about this one? As a woman, do we ever, or even as a man, we say, well, I just needed somebody to take care of me. I was tired of taking care of myself. I just need somebody that was going to come and help me. Take care of me. I was tired of doing it all by myself.
Yeah. I mean, people marry for different reasons.
Yeah. Navigating divorce. But how do you heal from it? What does that look like? How do you heal from it? Because with me, it has been, a journey. It's not something that just happens overnight.
Right.
But I think the epiphany is that I just said when I actually said, doggone, I don't care what he did, even though he was whole hilarious. Nah. Dude is hilarious. My ex-husband, oh boy, hilarious. That whole relationship, you got to see it on the big screen. For real.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for real. It was some ridiculousness. But never mind him. Never mind him, because at the end of the day, I'm accountable for me. So now, not only have I accepted that the relationship was over, I have accepted that I stayed too long. I have accepted that I allowed him to think that it was okay to treat me like garbage. I accepted that, I enabled him. I've accepted that I was a hindrance to him becoming the man that he needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I've accepted that I've moved on. No, but I think that we need to really, really, really look at our situations. And so as women, I admonish you, whether you're married or in a relationship, and the relationship has failed or is failing, I admonish you to take a look at the relationship in its entirety and doggone what he has done. But what have you tolerated? What have you allowed? What have you permitted for him to do over and over again? Okay. When all you've had was an argument and a handshake and you continue to allow it to exist?
Okay. I was just thinking part of that healing or how it begins, I think sometimes is when you start to put yourself first. Like when you start to love yourself.
Yes.
Start taking time
for yourself.
Yes.
Yes. No, I agree. I completely agree. I agree.
Then you start saying, do I want to continue to tolerate this?
I agree.
Can this be worked on or fixed or healed?
Yeah.
Okay, so then where does that leave me? Because I'm not willing to tolerate this anymore.
Yes. And I'm a big solution-focused person. So over that relationship, I'm like seriously like over relationships. What is this? In all capital letters, question mark. What is this? And so I need to figure out what this is. And I don't mean to be funny with me. It's not just in marriage. In my relationships, I have to go back and sometimes examine relationships. And sometimes it's people that are really close to me and people that I'm passionate about or I admire or I love. And I have to actually look at this relationship and examine it. And sometimes not just examine it. Once I've got to cross-examine it. And I have to really ask my question, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we look at stuff and we start talking about what this is and we start looking at it and realize, dang, this thing ain't never been healthy. Dang, this thing always been one-sided. Dang, this thing always been about them and they never been about me. You know? So in our relationships, taking an introspective look
yes,
at them. And like she said, talking about how do we heal? How do we recover from it? And she said, we recover from it by
putting yourself first, loving yourself.
Loving ourselves first, putting ourselves first. And like I said, self-accountability.
Yes.
And me putting myself first.
Counterintuitive from a scriptural standpoint that you put yourself first.
But if I love my neighbor as myself, then I've loved my neighbor, but now I have to reevaluate the self-love.
Right.
So now I've loved you like I needed to love you. So once I've gone back to my responsibility and I identify, okay, if this is what I've done wrong, then maybe I could correct it. But when I go back and I see, okay, well, I've tried to do everything as I ought. And I've loved you like I wanted to be loved and sacrificially. I've literally sacrificed my love for self to love you. Mm-hmm. But when I go back, I realize that I've sacrificed way too much. Because now I haven't.
Detriment.
Yeah, exactly. To my detriment. So now I need to go back and I need to rebuild me, set healthy boundaries for me. And that you weren't to me, I need to be to myself. And that I've been to you, I need to be to myself. You know, so how do we heal again? I say, from the beginning, I think acceptance, accountability, responsibility. And like she said, responsibility even for me.
Right.
So self-love. I need to get back to loving me, pouring into me.
Or letting the love of Jesus love on you.
Yes. And so I was telling someone, you know, I was messaging someone. I don't even remember who it was. I have so many therapy sessions on and off, just weird places, and it's just always. And I'm saying, you need to make the tough decisions in your life. It's time to make some tough decisions in your life. And in order for us to be in position to make the tough decisions, it's going to require us to get into a place where we're a whole person. We're working on that. And so because we're spirit beings, it's going to require us to get back to our maker. Because I need him to pour strength in me so I can make the hard choice. You know? And so it's, as believers, it's not a freaky, weird thing to say, okay, well, I'm going through a divorce and, I feel like God has turned his back on me. Understanding he said that he is with us always. And if he said, if you made your bed in hell, I'm there. And sometimes that's exactly where you are. Right. God is right there. And covenant is a tripartite agreement. It is not just you and your spouse. God is always at the helm. So while we're talking about how we're going to handle navigating divorce, making sure that it's actually happening or should be happening in the timing that God has ordained for it to happen. Because it's not his desire. He hates divorce. But he also hates for us to be dealt treacherously with, because he's a good father. And so getting back to him, because it's important to him that we have lives, but we have them that's more abundantly. And God doesn't want us to continue and to persist in a state of brokenness. Understand, if he is for us, who can be against us? He's working for you. And so even in your hard decisions, while you're navigating those difficult places, regardless of what role it is or what changes, even if it's a career change, or if you experience death or loss or tragedy or divorce, that hurtful, painful, gut-wrenching thing, because even when I say it in my own gut, it still does this little ringing thing here. And so even when you experience that, God is with you, even in that.
Amen.
So today we talked about navigating divorce. And I think everybody's perception or perspective of it may be a little bit different. But as you grieve and as you heal and as you recover, understanding, God, there is nothing lost. So even when you feel like you have wasted your time, time was made for man, and God has considered it all, and your story is still being written, and you have an expected end. He said all things work together for the good of them that love him and that are the called according to his purpose. And that's you. I know that you're called according to his purpose, and he's having his way in your life even on today. God bless you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Conversations with Jen and Mel. Please join us every Monday at 8 p.m. for new episodes on Facebook, YouTube, Rick.tv, and the Rick TV app by way of Apple TV, Fire TV, and Roku. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Join us again next time on Conversations with Jen and Mel.